forgot to record the intro saying things, for example, you should subscribe to the Rover. You should support us. Chris, what do you have to say about that?
Wednesday wants you. She wants diamond encrusted socks. So
Diamond encrusted
yeah,
socks.
you gotta support us if you can. TheRover.ca. Check out our free newsletter. Check us out on YouTube. All that good stuff. Thank you so much.
You're supporting her life, basically. So please feel free to check it out. Thank you so much. Enjoy the episode. I'm probably gonna have to cut this.
I spent some time in San Francisco.
Yeah, but hi there and welcome to the Midnight Choir, where we had a very bad opening, and so here we are on the second try. Today we have with us the ever beautiful Christopher Curtis, journalist of the Rover and all-around attractive man. How are you doing, my friend?
I like that you looked at Amanda as you said that and then just turned it on me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
How you doing?
After such an introduction, I'm doing wonderful. I had kind of a bad day yesterday, but then I went
You had a bad
boxing.
day yesterday. Why'd you have a bad day?
I don't know. I was just like, I'm all over my emotions. I'm tired. I'm a little burnt out, but
I didn't visit you yesterday.
I think that was it. I think that was it.
It's very rare that I don't visit you.
Isaac didn't jimmy his way into the apartment and make himself a coffee. Make themselves.
I never make myself a coffee. Your coffee sucks.
All right. Okay.
Oh, I just ended the podcast.
I'm gonna get extra stompy later. Sorry. So no, let's.
And our second guest here today is Amanda Moore, a journalist from the United States. We're going to be interviewing Amanda about a lot of stuff. Amanda dove deep into the right-wing world, the Republicans, MAGA, and kind of the fascist underpinnings of those. Undercover. No one knew who she was. No one knew what she was doing. And we're going to be interviewing her about that. We're going to be talking about a lot of subjects today. But I just wanted to give a content warning to anyone who is sensitive to kind of tough subjects. That we're going to be talking about violence against women. We're going to be talking about Nazis. We're going to be talking about racism. We're going to be talking about radical right-wing ideation. We're going to be discussing white supremacy. So, you know, this is
if
not.
You're not in a white supremacy discussion kind of mood.
Yeah, we're not gonna be the white supremacists.
No,
I just want to be clear. We're against the white supremacists.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's good to make that clear right off.
I'm gonna make that clear right off.
We don't want people like midway through to be like, wait, how do they feel about this?
Yeah. I hope that one's clear. If you go read any of the Rover's work, or you listen to my band, which makes fun of a lot of right-wingers, you'd probably figure it out. And if you go read any of Amanda's work, which is all linked in the description, all of it, that I could find. If Amanda wants me to link more, I'll link more.
Sixth grade book report in there. It turns out the Lord of the Flies is actually a metaphor
for Amanda.
That's what I found in the book report.
Amanda, where are you from?
I'm from Washington, D.C. Well, I'm from right outside of it.
So in Virginia, Maryland.
Yeah, Virginia. I go to the Pentagon.
The pentagram, that's where they summon Satan?
That is exactly where they summon Satan.
I wanted to ask you, what inspired you to start writing? Because before COVID, you weren't writing, am I correct?
I mean, I was not writing like as a career. I had a blog. I like, even in Huffington Post, there was some stuff up for me. It wasn't like sold stuff. It was just like their free blog, because I could run it on my own blog and then like repost it there. So there, I mean, yeah, it wasn't like I had never written anything before. I'd done contract writing, but like for lawyers, like creating their websites, things like that. But yeah, I'd never been paid to do journalism before.
What were you doing prior to starting to get work in journalism?
I used to travel the country and work trade shows of various kinds. I would take car contracts and do like launch of cars. So I'd be on the road for like between 3 days and 5 months at a time, usually about 200.
And you were booking models for these, or?
Well, so I was doing that for over a decade, and then right before the pandemic, I broke my leg, and you can't do that with a broken leg. So I started a company that's staffed for what I used to do. And then the pandemic happened about, I guess, a year and a half later. And so it didn't really matter what I did at that point, which facet of the industry I was in, because the entire industry shut down worldwide. Right. And it still has not really recovered. So that's what I was doing. I was booking models for the job I used to have.
The Mother Jones article that I read about you was a profile on you. It's linked in the description. You said that you were really suffering. You were suffering from suicidal thoughts, and you were dealing with really heavy stuff. But deciding to infiltrate MAGA saved your life?
Well, I mean, like, so when people are depressed, you have different ways of dealing with stuff, right? So, but what if you're like depressed and you can't do anything? I mean, it's not like I had a job. I could just sit around and think about my life fucking sucked. I lost my home. I lost all my savings. You know, here, the way it worked, and I lived in one of the best places for the pandemic financially. My business was newer, so I would occasionally take contracts to other people. One of them was a taxed contract. I made like $5,000. And so my unemployment, instead of being based off of my freelance
Annual,
business work, was based off that $5,000. So I got $100 a week unemployment.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was just like, you know, there were programs where it was like, oh, you can defer your rent, you can get evicted. Well, I don't want to owe my asshole landlord $55,000. Like, what? You know? So I just left. So yeah, it was like, there was just nothing to do. And so I always wanted to write, but it pays shit, but it pays better than $100 a week, right? Or theoretically.
It does pay shit.
Yeah.
My friend here could attest to that.
Yeah. So I never like bothered, you know, trying to get into it. And then, but I've been tear gassed. I was in Baltimore after Freddie Gray died. Like I was on CNN talking about like a photo I took of after Freddie Gray's death, like post the uprising, or during the uprising, but after the riots, like went viral worldwide. And like a stipulation of it was you had to interview me because white supremacists were using the photo. So if you wanted to use it in any of your stuff, so CNN wanted to use it, so I made them interview me. So, you know, and I wrote about it.
Good
and
strategy.
So, yeah, it wasn't my original plan, but then I saw
Right.
how it was being used. So yeah, so, you know, like that was my interest. And so I would always go to protests and record them. And sometimes I would blog about them. That, which has all been deleted, of course. I deleted it when I was undercover. But yeah, so I was like, well, this is going to be crazy. These people are lunatics, you know, so I'm going to go check it out. And that just gave me something to do. It gave me something to focus on. And like
Okay. It was the focusing that helped so much.
Yeah, I think maybe when you have purpose sometimes, you know, and the purpose you chose happens to be probably one of the most difficult missions you could have imagined. But like that, how long did it take you to make that call that like, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take on some sort of assumed identity, even though like I'm sure a lot of your cover is like you, but a slightly different version of you. You do have to kind of live a double life, and I would imagine that's not a decision you took lightly.
Yeah, I mean, it really just kind of happened. And it sounds so, I guess, like silly to say, but so the first rally was after Trump lost the election in November 2020. The second one was December 2020. I mean, these were things I was just walking to. A podcast paid me to go to the December rally. You know, they paid me for the audio. And so I was like, well, there's going to be a third one in January. I have fuck all to do. I'm going to just go to that one too. And I'll probably be able to sell maybe a blog post about it to somebody, or like maybe an audio to a different podcast. And I went, and it was January 6th.
But you knew going into January 6th, like I think in the profile you said December was incredibly disturbing. Like you had a sense that things were escalating. So I think a lot of people were totally caught off guard by January 6th. You had some inkling that something might happen. What were you seeing in December after Trump, like after it was clear Trump lost the election? What were you seeing that kind of made you think, oh shit, this could get really ugly?
I mean, people were delusional. I mean, it was just the first one. They were like old people in masks, and it was like people were kind of like, I don't know, walking around. The second one, it was like.
And where was the first one, in DC?
Yeah. I mean, when I say the rallies, I mean the DC rallies, right? Yeah.
Okay.
There were two, and then January 6th. Okay. Yeah, like I walked to them, as you know. So that's what I'm saying. It was like low stakes. I didn't have an identity. I just went. You know, I just literally like walked down the street and went to a huge crowd of people. Yeah, they were just really paranoid. They all had stories about their oppression, their violent oppression from Antifa. They were so afraid of everybody around us. You know, everybody in the city, like you couldn't walk like 2 blocks without people being like, are you okay? Are you safe? Let's get you someone to escort you. Just like completely delusional. And also as far as like masking went, by the December 12th rally, I mean, they were like, if you were an old person in a mask, they were like harassing you, you know? And it's like at the first rally, people have been kind of given a pass. If you were like elderly or like, you know, you looked like you might, you know, not be like doing so hot, like maybe you sounded sick and you wore a mask. Nobody, I did not personally witness the harassment that I ended up seeing in December.
What would what like someone being harassed from, what is that like?
Take the fucking mask off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
to an old person, like to like someone in their 70s or something.
Yeah.
Who believes in the same cause as they do.
Yeah.
Wow.
But they're trying not to die.
Wow. That's your mistake, right?
So as this is all going on, you said in the profile that at one point you yourself were an evangelical Christian, and that you kind of had like a libertarian ideology. So what changed during COVID? Was it before COVID that you started?
Oh, it was way
changing
before
your thoughts
COVID.
on that?
Yeah.
Okay,
I think that article might have been a little unclear on that.
Okay.
I think people
so when did that change?
Yeah, so people confuse the Black Lives Matter protests. When I talk about my experience in BLM, I mean in 2014.
2014.
I think people are associated with 2020 now. And that is,
Yeah.
I was so checked out in 2020, it didn't really register with me.
Okay.
Yeah, so I grew up evangelical, but I was like an atheist before I was old enough to buy alcohol. I mean, I was agnostic by the time I was in middle school. But that's like my background. So like my dad doesn't take insulin for his diabetes. He prays. When I broke my leg, he was like, oh, you can just come to like a faith healing. And I'm like, you know, now I have like 6 screws in my leg. So like, I don't think the faith healing would have cut it. Probably, you know,
Sure. You never know.
You never know. I did not give it a chance.
Your leg was healed by vibes.
By vibes. So that is still like my dad. And then, you know, my mom was not like religious growing up, but I went to a Baptist school. So
pretty conservative.
Yeah. No. So my mom actually voted for Obama twice and then voted for Trump twice. Yeah, my dad.
The Trump Obama voter. That's a very real demographic. Yeah.
Oh, really? That's real.
That's a super real. A lot of people who voted for Obama twice voted for Trump twice.
Yeah.
So weird.
There is like a thing on this, and so, but my dad is like a lifelong conservative.
Okay.
So yeah, my dad was like in a cult when I was like before I was born. So like he has like a long history. Yeah.
When I met Isaac, I think it was like 2 weeks into knowing Isaac. I live upstairs. That's how we know each other. When I met Isaac, they go, oh well, you know, I met my roommate in a cult in Australia. I was like, oh Jesus, what the fuck's going on here? Like,
I am very interested, and I'm sure Chris is too, in the full story of the journey infiltrating the MAGA world for 9 months. And I have so many questions, but I want to hear the story. So COVID happens. You're like, man, you know what would be very fun? Infiltrating fascism. That's just not what I would have done. But I want to know the story. So what happened? Tell me as much as you want.
So, well, when I went to CPAC, that point I had developed more of an identity, you know. So I used to live in Maryland, in Annapolis, Maryland. It's the capital of the state.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks the capital is Baltimore.
Baltimore's the biggest. Annapolis is the capital.
Yeah, Annapolis is very boring. Everybody there is either 21 or 101. You know what I mean?
They're all either going to the military college or dead.
They're retired. Yeah. And so very, very boring place. So I didn't really have a lot of friends there. So I was an active libertarian. So like I couldn't, you know, I was worried people would recognize me, but I was like, if I just claim Annapolis, like nothing going on. I don't have to look into it. So that's where I knew it well enough I could talk about where I'd lived. So I said I was from there, and I used my mother's maiden name as my last name and got a burner number, but I still didn't really have this like fleshed out, you know, ideology or whatever. And I was just vibing, you know.
I don't think they do either, but
I hadn't fleshed out my bigotry. Okay, I hadn't picked what I was.
That's gonna be a reel. That's gonna be a reel.
And so, you know, I'm down there, I'm just hanging out, and I'm going into some of the stuff, and there really weren't many journalists there. And I still didn't think it was a long-term project. I really thought like, okay, there's not a lot of journalists here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write about it. I'm going to pitch it when I get, home. And I met, so many, like I would out myself to all of these journalists all of the time. So a lot of people, I knew journalists before I went undercover, right? I'm from DC.
Yeah, like you were providing information to,
Yeah, so the guy wrote the profile of me at Mother Jones, Ollie Breland, and like I knew Dan from before, because like I live here, like I had met the QAnon Anonymous guys at a QAnon rally in 2019 because they'd come out here for it, and I was like, "Where's the party at? Like, I give you guys $5 a month, so like they met up with me, So like, yeah, I knew a lot of people, and so if someone who's like work I like, I'd always be like, "Hi." By the way, because I figured it was always better to have somebody know who I was, because I was really just alone. And yeah, but I still didn't have like this plan yet.
Yeah.
And I got, conversations with people. They would talk to me about James O'Keefe. Like one lady was like, I've probably paid as much to him as I paid for my daughter to go out of state college. And I'm like, if I was your daughter, I'd be so fucking pissed.
Yeah.
And so like, I went to this reception hosted by a group called Republicans for National Renewal, and it was Marjorie Taylor Greene, Laura Loomer, and Paul Gosar. And it should have been like kind of shocking for them to share an event stage with Laura Loomer, but it wasn't, I guess. I don't know. Nothing matters. After J6, nothing matters.
Yeah.
And while I was there, this guy started talking to me. I'm like, oh, like, fuck off, like, you don't look important. Like, I'm trying to, like, have conversations with people who, like, matter. And then he's like, I'm going to be giving a speech. Also, I'm, like, whatever. I forget what position he is with the group, but he's, like, a founding member of the organization that was throwing the event. And I'm like, okay, great. So we exchanged contact information. And when I get home, he's like, oh, you live in DC. Can you meet up with our guy at the Hungarian embassy? And I was like,
oh,
yeah,
wow.
I can. Yeah. And I was like, I'm all in. So that was kind of when it transitioned. I was like, well, I can't. I talked to a couple of editors, but really they were like, you have to publish under your name. We can't use a fake name. Like, you can't be anonymous. So because of that, I was like, well, I just have to sit on this to the end because, like, I can't.
Yeah. I guess at one point you realized that you had something so good that it's worth sticking around.
Yeah, a little bit after I met with the guy at the Hungarian embassy, I was like, I have a book. You know what I mean? So I was like, at the end of the day, like, that's still kind of how I feel about all this. Like, journalism doesn't work out. I got a book. Like,
you do definitely have a book, by the way.
Yeah. You have a book.
Yeah. And so it kind of developed from there. So, I would do like these and really, I would spend sometimes thousands of dollars because I did get pandemic aid. Like, we got, I don't know, $600 a week or whatever for pandemic aid and like whatever. And I wasn't paying rent anymore. And then my business got like a PPP, and I tried to pivot to video. No one wants to do video conventions, by the way. Very bad idea.
Yeah, I remember. I remember being at one of those and thinking like, no.
Yeah.
The whole point is to be in a different city and do terrible things.
Right. So it's like, no, this is like a waste of my time. So anyway, so I ended up just being like, okay, well, this is like my focus. And now that I have, no rent to worry about, I could really, and I had like sometimes like my friends would be like, here's $400 for your flight or whatever. And I was using up my points and my miles. So sometimes I would go like waste a ton of money or points on something that didn't pan out. Like I went to go see Lauren Boebert at a Lincoln Day dinner in Colorado, and I didn't really like make any connections, but it was a really weird experience. And I'm like, well, that goes in the book.
There's a chapter. There's a chapter in the book right there.
Jerky Lauren herself.
Like, it's not really anything interesting, but like there was, it was just like weird shit, but nobody of importance. And then there would be other stuff where it would be like, Hungarian embassy. And so it was kind of spread out. I'd also go to like QAnon stuff, and the QAnon stuff, I've never really written about it. When I was undercover, I did have a Twitter account that I was using, anonymous, a little turtle, named Frank. And I would post from QAnon events, because those were kind of lower stakes. Mm-hmm. That's not like people who love Hitler. It's like less likely to turn out violent if I got caught.
It's more
and like
just online weirdos.
Yeah, it'd be like boomers, really. A lot of boomers. And
Yeah.
so it's like I can outrun them. Like literally I could outrun these people. It's fine.
You're a
You
better
know,
athlete. Yeah, you don't have
right. A bunch of
osteoporosis yet.
26-year-old Hungarians. I don't know. Maybe I don't really have a chance. But so I would post about that, but I've never really written about it. And part of why is that, you know, it is less politically, I think, relevant, just in terms of like I have actual names of actual people in politics when it comes to like the fascism stuff. But yeah, so I would go like I broke my elbow during my time undercover. I was actually visiting a friend after I had been undercover in Texas. And like, maybe see it. I fell, I busted it, really bad break. I went to my doctor. I was in Austin. I had to fly back to DC. My flight got canceled overnight in Dallas.
So you're sitting there with a broken arm and in agony.
Jeez.
Broken arm, lost my license, so I had a paper license, and like they were like, you know, it was just such a hassle.
A nightmare to get on the flight, yeah.
And I needed surgery, and it was very painful. And so I get back to my doctor, and she's like, "Great news, we can get you in for surgery on Monday." And I was like, "Bad news. If I have surgery on Monday, can I fly to Florida on Tuesday for a QAnon rally?" And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "Are you familiar with like the idea that Donald Trump is going to save the world from the Democrats and Hollywood celebrities who are all drinking children's blood?" Yeah. She was like, "No." And I was like, "Well, okay, so these people believe it."
you explained QAnon to your doctor.
And I was like, and I'm in a documentary, and they're British, and there's a travel ban, and they have finally gotten their clearance, their exemption to the ban. And we've been trying to coordinate this for a month and a half, and I have to go. And she was like, "Okay, so we'll do surgery after." And she's like, "When you go to these little QAnon events, do you wear a mask?" And I was like, "Stupid question, no." And she's like, "Well, you got Moderna, so that's promising." Okay. So I like went.
But yeah, if you were to get COVID, you can't then have surgery, right? Like
right.
Your lung capacity. Yeah,
well, and the doctor,
your doctor sounds very nice.
And so I like was at the event, and then people were very nice because my arm was broken. And then these women were praying in tongues on my broken arm. I don't know if you ever had someone pray in tongues on you, but
as one does.
It also, they would like also put in English, and it would just be like derogatory towards me, like insinuating that like God was trying to slow me down because like, you know, like if I had been at home with my kids in the kitchen, I wouldn't have broken my elbow.
Did your persona have kids?
No, I mean, I was.
No, they're saying if you chose to have kids.
Yeah, I would have been home.
A true Christian wife.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been in that Waffle House at 2:30 in the morning.
Oh, is that where it happened? I didn't want to ask, but I was like, is alcohol involved? At Waffle House, 2:30 a.m. It could be.
It was probably fighting.
Drunk.
It was probably fighting, not.
No,
alcohol.
I slipped because the floor was wet, and then I wasn't even like drunk, and my friend was drunk. So she couldn't take me to the hospital. So I get an Uber to the hospital. I walk in. I'm like, my elbow's broken. I'm very calm because I've already dealt with it. I'm like, I already know it's broken. And I like, no, they're like, "Oh, you don't know that. We just blah, blah, blah." And the doctor literally touches my elbow, and he's like, "Okay, so it's a question of if it's broken in 3 or 4 spots because that is broken." And I was like, I know, I feel it. Anyway, very bad.
I'm in excruciating pain.
Right. I was like, "Do you guys have to go alcohol here? Can I order it in? Because it's like a long wait and you're not giving me drugs." So like, my advice is if you break something, drink a bunch and then go to the ER. So now lessons learned for next time.
Call my boy Slippery Pete. He'll hook you up with some pain medicines.
Yeah, right. I'm like, how do I get paid? Like, where's the drug dealer in Austin? So like, you know, I had all of these like very bizarre experiences, and you know, coming from a libertarian background, when I was like, yeah, let's do the fascism thing, you know, we were not into religion, and that was like, I think a kind of like a culture shock to me in a way. I expected the QAnon people to be like that, but then like this whole like Christ is King thing, also like we thought Catholics were going to hell. So like at least the QAnon people I understood because
Catholics also think Catholics are going to hell. So
they're like the weird.
What did we ever do to you?
Oh, it's not just you guys. It's the Mormons, it's the Lutherans, the Episcopalians. Those are just Catholic light.
What's wrong with Lutherans and Episcopalians?
They're Catholic light. I don't make the rules.
Yeah,
they're Catholic light.
One of the things, like when I was reading your profile, you wrote that you're at an event, I think it was at the New York Young Republicans, and it's getting real weird or it's heavy or whatever. So you think, all right, usually I don't allow myself to get blackout drunk at these things, but now I will. I've honestly, like, in a lot of super stressful journalism related situations, I leaned on that crutch fucking hard. I'm trying not to, but was that, yeah, no, I read that and I was like, part of me felt concerned because I haven't obviously been nearly as far as deep as you were, but there comes a time where you start to lean on drugs and alcohol to kind of deal with that craziness you feel inside. And I'm not undercover. I'm myself. I'm whatever. I can't even imagine the toll it was taking on you. Was that ever something you worried about?
It wasn't taking a toll on me at all. I thought it was great. I mean, like that. It was like it was fine. So that was not New York Republicans. It was actually at Turning Point USA. James O'Keefe.
Oh yeah.
At a Project Veritas party. It was open bar. So thank you, James, for the booze and for the stuffed animal I took. I took a little alpaca. Yeah, I mean, like, you know, I mean, it was also like COVID, so there really wasn't much to do but drink. So but I don't think that there would have been like a difference, you know, in terms of that. I think, you know, I find the actual politics of journalism itself now more difficult and burdensome than I ever found being undercover.
100% agree with you.
Yeah.
The bullshit is so much worse than whatever danger you face, or like, that's bad, but it's like, I feel like I can deal with it because it's so straightforward. The bullshit of like having to kiss this guy's ass or having to be that guy or whatever, like, that is, to me, infinitely more. People would ask like, oh, well, like, why'd you leave the paper? I'm making this about me. Wonderful. Why'd you leave the paper or whatever? And everyone's super nice and chill and whatever, but there's just this whole, the politics of journalism are insufferable because the people in charge have not been on the ground in years. They don't see what's happening, or they you know, and they have a job to protect, and I understand it, but that is that, you know what, I probably drank more because of that than I did because of any kind of sense of impending danger.
Yeah. You know, and I never felt like I was in danger, and I think that's irrational. I do think that is, you know.
You were 100% in danger.
You were in danger.
Yeah. No, but like, alarms never went off in moments that I was there. And even now, I mean, it's like there's like a difference. I think like I understand like a guy, like a kind of a stalker or whatever, but you know, and like I said, like I'm at a WeWork and I try to do a lot of this stuff at WeWorks because you can't tell where I am. I mean, you can tell I'm at a WeWork, but like, you know, there's nothing to like dox me on or find my home or whatever. But you know, I think there's like a difference too, because I look at it very like pragmatically, like I did this, so now I do that. You know, I did this Nazi stuff, so now like these are not the consequences of my actions, but like an expected result in which I need to like, and it doesn't bother me. And it's like, it is what it is, because like somebody could show up and, you know, shoot me in the face tomorrow, but I could also get hit on a bus by a bus on my way out the door here. So like, I don't, you know, just, these are the conditions, and like, it's what you have to live in, and like, whatever precautions I have to take. And that doesn't really bother me. And the like harassment doesn't bother me. And, you know, I mean, there are certain people that I think would hurt me, just because I think, you know, they have arrest records and history of violence, but you know, I'm kind of like, I know who those people are. And so, I don't know. It was very much like, I really enjoyed doing it. I like enjoyed being undercover. I enjoyed, like, it's exciting, you know, it's
thrilling.
Like, and it is, you know, like hearing the rhetoric, it really takes a lot to write down. So like the QAnon stuff is really what would get to me. You know, and I'm like a cranky person. I can be very irritable. And I don't, you know, I try to be nice to people, especially like if I have to be around them, but I know my limits with people and for personality types. And I know that sometimes I just have to like walk away from a conversation, or literally sometimes in person, like with a coworker, before, you know, in the before times, like I would just have to be like, hey, I don't like to talk to you before I have coffee. And that wasn't really true, but it was true for that person, you know? And so would hit that, like, that was a big obstacle being undercover for me. It was like not being able to be like, oh my gosh, shut the fuck up, you know, like, there would be people who would just, like, everything they would say would be conspiracy, and it's like you couldn't have a normal conversation with them, and it would be so frustrating. I mean,
and you want to end it so you can move on to the next conversation or like get some more information,
but these people just run on sentence, like,
or like you sit down at a dinner and it's like, you know, like some of these events, you know, I would pay like, you know, $1,000 for the VIP ticket, so then you have a dinner table and it's like, oh my god, I'm at the worst fucking table, you know. And like, so sometimes like I would drink at those events too, but I usually like find people who annoyed me less or who had more valuable information and drink with them. You know, because that's the thing, is like, it's very hard for me to turn off my personality. So like my personality undercover was very much like me, but just like a shittier version of me. So that was more difficult to me, was patiently being nice with people. I don't kiss people's ass in real life. Like, I just have never done that. And I never will. And even when I owned a business, I didn't do it, you know? And so having to kind of like be a step back from that was
be a little more deferential.
That was really, really hard, and that I think would have maybe drank more, other than, you know, Nelson wanting to do a genocide. That did drive me to drink, and it was free.
So Alex Nelson, he's this guy you meet, and he eventually becomes the chair of the RNC committee of Oregon, right?
Republicans for National Renewal's, the organization. He became their committee chair for Oregon,
But then he gets booted out. This guy who you spent so much time with. Actually, I have some quotes from him.
I don't think he's booted out anymore.
Oh,
I have a suspicion. I mean, he's always hanging out with people again.
Okay, so he's in the mix.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Just maybe not officially on payroll.
I have some quotes from this guy, Alex Nelson, you spent quite a few months with. That they're quotes that you wrote. I did not get these quotes personally.
Yeah, so we're not going to edit the video to make it sound like this is what you actually believe. I will, but
you better not. Also, you don't have access to this. Sucks for you.
You'd be surprised what I have access to.
Oh no. So Alex Nelson, he's this. So tell us a little bit more context for Alex Nelson before I read some shocking quotes from this guy.
Sure. So Alex had been at, Nelson, that's what he went by, was Nelson. So Nelson had been at several events that I've been to, but we didn't really know each other. And we ended up at Turning Point USA Student Action Summit in July of 2021 in Tampa, Florida. There was like a Republicans for National Renewal held this party next door at a hotel that's like attached to the convention center. And it was just like in someone's hotel room, you know, it was like a suite, Embassy Suites. And he had been there, but we didn't really talk. But again, I have like a broken arm, so like I'm pretty recognizable because I'm the only person with a fucking sling on. And I have like a little pillow. I mean, it's like a very, you know, it was very, very embarrassing. I was not subtle. So the next night or 2 nights later, I think there is a, I don't know, cocktail reception or something. And I was like, this is a fucking bust. It was one of those things where I'm at a table with people and I'm like, oh my God, shut up. And I'm like, getting ready to leave. And I'm like, I'm going to get a glass of wine and I'm going to get like a dessert. And while I'm doing that, Nelson comes up. I have no context for him other than I know that he was at this event that I was at the night before, which was mostly, you know, their little white supremacy. And he asked me what I wanted for America. And I was like, oh, no, you know, I'll have a thing today, whatever. Because I didn't want to like.
You're kind of testing the waters.
People, yeah. And I was like, how about you? And he's like, friendly or Nazi Germany? And I'm like, okay.
All right.
He said, the quote that he said is, a friendly or Nazi Germany. That's the exact quote that you said in the article. That's crazy. A friendly or Nazi Germany is what Nelson wants.
Wow.
And thanks, then Nelson. He pulled out his, what is it? It's like 23andMe to show me how white he was.
Oh my God. He just carries it around.
What's 23andMe?
It's like a DNA test. You know, he's like 100% Northern European.
He's white as fuck.
Yeah.
All right. Gross.
You guys don't do that?
We do. Yeah, it's 23andMe. Ancestry.ca has like has a similar thing.
No, I mean, you don't personally carry it around with you to like prove.
Oh yeah, no. Well, yeah.
Where are you?
I mean, I could do that, but I also have like a giant rat tail that always grows no matter what. So it's like my white trash is like beyond dispute at this point. People are like, oh, the disgusting hillbilly in the corner? Yeah, that guy. No one's questioning his heritage. His heritage is like 600% disgusting redneck. Yeah, well. Sorry, Mom and Dad.
I also grew up white trash, and I've been trying to avoid that image for a long time now.
I mean, it's just who I am. You know, you could be tolerant and
white
kind
trash.
and white trash. Like, not
Yeah,
white
yeah,
trash.
well,
Like,
I mean,
it's
we're
not
both-
like a
we are
part
both
of my
proof of that.
identity that I wear, but like at the same time, and I'm sorry, this is very personal history of Chris Curtis. When I moved from the country to the city, you know, everybody in, like, I don't have that much in common with these guys. I mean, we like some of the same stuff. We're bros and whatever, but I'm very much a product of this other place, and I'm not going to hide it. I'm not going to, you know. Of course, when I go back there, they're like, oh, the city boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, with your fancy toothbrushes and
With your toothbrushes.
hospitals. You fancy doctors. You're not going to a veterinarian to have your stitches closed.
You have beers that are not Molson, you bourgeois pig.
Yeah, well, we have Labatt and Molson.
Oh, we do have
Yeah,
Labatt.
We have Labatt and Molson.
That's the yeah. Anyways, so this guy's nutso, a friendlier Nazi Germany. That's what he wants.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you keep spending time with this guy because he's an in.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's like the kind of thing. I mean, that's like the perfect thing
Yeah.
to hear someone say. I mean, you're trying to find
Jesus.
people like that, is, you know, like,
Yeah.
like there's no work involved. You just told me.
Okay, so you hung out with him. He started taking you to rallies. What happened?
Yeah. So actually,
Nelson.
that was July, and then I got COVID. Actually at that event, very
That makes
sad.
sense.
Of course, yeah.
I was DC's like 201st breakthrough case. Like, I like called contact tracing, and they're like, "Where have you been in the past
You were
2
like-
weeks?" And I was
yeah.
like, "Okay, so South Carolina, Tampa, you know, like," and I'm like, they're like, "What the fuck?"
White supremacist rallies.
Yeah, I was
that
like,
too,
"Is this really
that
the
too.
Turning Point USA?" So they were like, "Whatever, bitch, just stay home for 2 weeks. Like,
Yeah.
we don't care. We're not contact tracing this shit." So I had to
Remember
cancel
when people were doing that? Like, I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
when at the very beginning of the pandemic, I called the number and they're like, "Were you on the green metro line between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. between this stop and this?" Like, dude, we all have it now.
Everyone has it.
I
It's
think
okay.
at this point we're trying to herd cats, but no, sorry. So further with Nelson.
So you got COVID.
Yeah.
and
So
then
I
what
was gonna
happened?
go to some other event, and I think that he ended up going to it. I had to cancel because I had COVID. And then I ended up going to Portland, which is where he lived. Well, he lived in Oregon or Washington. It's very unclear, honestly, where he lives or how he's paying.
There's
for
a
it.
lot of extremists in Oregon and
And Washington. Oh yeah. Oh, I
in the
just-
mountains.
So then I flew out there for this rally. It was supposed to be an anniversary rally of this other rally that had happened that turned into like a riot. I don't know. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I haven't thought about
Yeah,
this in
yeah.
a while. I should have reread the article.
Sure. No.
I can't remember the name of the rally.
No
is
one's
what I'm
holding.
thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some you know, and it turned into like just, you know, beating up protesters and, you know, the cops and the fascists.
Did you
like,
personally beat up any protesters?
No. Well, so this is what happened. He told me we could come. He's like, "Come out for this rally, and we'll have a picnic. We'll watch it. We'll have a picnic. We'll watch the riot happen below us. It'll be a race."
Did you actually have a picnic?
Well, it was supposed to be downtown. He's like, there will be thousands of people, spectators on bridges and outside, because this is all the culture that Portland has now. There's no more farmers markets. There's just riots. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, it's riots and counter riots for a while, and then
It was,
federal troops, not federal troops, but like federal agents were like snatching people
Yeah.
off the
Yeah,
streets.
they'd be disappearing
Yeah.
people.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yay.
So, the police, I guess, convinced the Proud Boys to move their little riot from downtown to an abandoned Kmart parking lot.
Okay.
So I had been like, oh, I'm going to be staying at my friend's house in the outskirts. I was like, she's going to drop me off in downtown Portland. And there was some like truth in some of this, whatever. But I was actually staying at like the Hilton downtown, you know, because I was like, what's closest? Because I was like, what if I have to pee or like wash my face? And I had like my gas mask and everything with me. And he had nothing. He was like, nah. He's like, why do you have that? And I'm like, you literally said that there was like, what? Like,
Yeah.
you said there was going to be a riot. Like, I'm ready for it. So he picks me up and he's like,
Your
This
hair's
is
just
bullshit.
scratching a little bit against the mic.
oh, sorry. He's like, this
All
is
good.
bullshit. They've moved it. They've moved the thing to the parking lot. And he's like, you know, and he's like, Andy knows, and he's like making fun of Andy No, who is this like piece of shit like guy, and who just
Post
doxes
millennial,
people.
is that the post millennial?
Yeah, the post
Yeah,
millennial guy, yeah.
yeah.
And he's like, you know, this guy's like a loser or whatever, and nobody cares about him. He sucks, and which is very funny because it probably hurt Andy's feelings if people were saying that about him on his team. So he's like, we'll go by. So we drove by, and he's like, you know, we can't go in because these people are like, you know, they're gross outdoor people. They're like not respectable.
The unwashed
people.
Masses.
Yeah. He's like, they're supposed to sacrifice their bones and bodies for the movement, and here they are hiding in this parking lot. Very sad, very embarrassing. And so we didn't go into the parking lot. He's like, it's dangerous, and they don't know us, and like, you know, he's like, it's just whatever. So we did not actually go in. I'm sorry.
Sounds like he was scared.
I think so. Well, so I think it's like bigger than like just being like, I'm just scared to be like around these people. I actually later found out that he had been kicked out of the Proud Boys. So I think, yeah. But of course, why would I think
couldn't name enough cereal brands while they were punching him in the arm.
Yeah.
He was too sketchy. They said he was too sketchy.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're a big fan of the Proud Boys? Name one album by them.
Oh, God. White Riot. Yeah.
There you go. Carry on.
But oh no, yeah, I mean that's like pretty much, you know, so we like hung around all day, and for like 7 hours we just drove around Portland and talked. And so nice. I got some of his insight. But yeah, I never got to see the riot because
Were you wearing the wire the whole time?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I had I wanted my bra, like I had my old iPhone, and so I had a Bluetooth one that I would wear in my bra that fed to the old iPhone. And then I had a handheld voice recorder that I would put in a pocket in the front of my purse. Yeah. And so I like always had double. Always.
That's very smart. Yeah, you just got to have the backups. Yeah. He said, and I quote, I think during that ride, he said, if demographics are indeed destiny, then that means the right wing is only 5 to 10 years away from being a full-on racist, nationalist organization. Because, I mean, there's no non-white people at right-wing events.
Yep. Yeah. And I don't remember if it's in the article or not. So that article was originally written for Rolling Stone, which gave me double the word count, basically, that The Nation did. So it got really like cut down for The Nation. But he had also been talking about how like he didn't want to be a big tent, and how he was like, you know, all these like Chinese people, these Asian people, you know, they're coming into the parties. Like there's not. He's like, what are you doing? You know, he's like, they say the Democrats are racist. And he's like, that is stupid. Like, it's us, you know, like, we should be using racism to gatekeep was basically his point. And it didn't really matter if these Chinese people or whoever, like, love Trump or, you know, they're giving money. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean that they should be within the party apparatus itself.
Yeah. Can I, like... That's I find that really like I find that fascinating the emphasis on genetics and race and the idea that like because like I think he phrased it really well, like in 10 to 15 years it'll be a full-on racist because 5 to 10 it'll be like a full-on racist openly because as it stands
they're close,
they are basically that, you know. And we might hear coded words like, you know, during the Trayvon Martin hearing, like, you know, the word thug was used a lot. We know what word you want to use, and we know it starts with an N. And I think earlier, you know, globalist when you're referring to probably a Jewish person. The nonstop effort of Republican legislatures across the United States to try and limit the voting, the access to voting that certain minorities have, like all of the border rhetoric. Like it's not like they're, you know, it's this big open secret that but they maintain this like veneer of deniability. And what it sounds like when I read your stuff is that they're increasingly just taking the mask off. And I don't know if it's that they've seen Trump get so much success that they figure, well, we might as well just stop pretending. But I mean, I almost prefer this openly, like, well, yeah, just tell me what you believe. I'm tired of us dancing around and pretending that it's not about race when it is. Did you like what do you think Because you speak to a lot of Republicans who are hesitant or maybe leaving the party or thinking about leaving the party. And then, you speak to these Republicans who are like race war now. Obviously, there's a big spectrum, and the race war now people seem to be winning. But, what is that spectrum like? Like, are there people who are legitimately struggling right now with all the race stuff or the identitarian stuff or whatever? Like, what are there still people in the party who could save the party?
Oh, I don't know if they can save it. I mean,
Yeah.
like there are people who like ideologically that would be their preference. I mean, so the thing is like I don't argue with people. I don't like, I also talk to a lot of like open like fascists, because there's interpersonal beef or like whatever. And I mean, people are generally like everyone I talk to is generally very like friendly with me, a very casual because I don't interrogate people and I don't care if I'm not writing about you. I don't really like care. And even if I am writing about you, I'm not going to interview you because like you're just going to say some dumb racist shit. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like I'm not, But the thing is, a lot of these people will start to talk to me very friendly and like ask me questions from like it's if a random person asks me, be like, it's a bad faith question. But like if these people that have a relationship with me, it's like it's not bad faith. Do you guys really, like really think this about trans people? Like when it comes to how many children are transitioning or something, ask me questions about that, questions that like in their media they're not getting, and questions that like the rhetoric is pushing that like like trans is an epidemic or something, where it's like all children
forcing them
lose
to have
genital.
to spell their beliefs out. Yeah.
And they'll ask me, like, is this true? Is this really happening? Or like, like even like the like suicide rates of trans people being like, bringing up to me and me being like, have you considered, like, let's divide it by like wealth and who can like transition in a way where they have a social structure where they're beyond that, like look at Caitlyn Jenner, for instance.
Yeah.
Caitlyn Jenner probably has a better life than many other trans people who maybe can't afford surgeries or medication, or who don't have any social status or power that keeps them, kind of a little bit protected, at least from like maybe violence in the street. Right. So, and I can tell I'm like the first person who's ever said this stuff to people sometimes, it's just because the media they consume doesn't have it. There is no other side. It's just like, these are the suicide rates, and the suicide rates are because transgenderism is a mental disorder, not because there's external factors that are contributing to this, right? So it's like stuff like that. We'll have these conversations, and it's like, I've watched people, I don't think that like changing people is possible on a large scale. I think that is really one-on-one interactions, and so I think those interactions have nothing to do with the party. Me having a conversation
I think
with someone,
that's how you de-radicalize, right? It's on a one-by-one
empathizing. Yeah, and I'm also hardline. Like I don't de-radicalize people, and I won't platform you if you've been like it's just whatever. But like if these are the conversations I'll have with people. Or I can tell some of the ones who've left the party have asked me a lot of questions about what Democrats believe, because they're just like, oh, Democrats are communists, like, and everybody's AOC, and it's like, I wish.
Yeah.
I
like this party that you're describing.
Yeah, tell me more. I'll sign up. So like, I think, then those people are kind of like testing the water to see what it's like to like be a Democrat. And so there's people who ideologically they would like to move the party, and I think I don't think that they are like, there's being racist because you're racist, there's being racist because you have beliefs that like the core of that belief is rooted in racism, even if you don't consider that, and these are like things that don't matter to the person who is a target of this, but matter when it comes to changing someone's mind and behavior, right? So like, presumably like Bill Clinton was not like, the 3 strikes law is like good because black people will go to jail, you know what I mean? But
it's a law rooted
like
in
that's
racism.
What happens, right, is like, so like stuff like that. I mean, like it doesn't matter if you're like the person in jail, but what matters like when you're de-radicalizing people is that. Anyway, so the point is here, a lot of these people will kind of start to ask me these questions, and I can kind of tell when someone is like losing interest in involvement in the party, like through this line of questioning. And like I think what's more likely is that these people are going to just leave the party. I mean, they're they are done trying. I mean, they've been a lot of these people are trying for a long time. People I know that have like local office positions, like really obscure little things, like they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I can't do this anymore. Or who used to be involved in clubs and activism are no longer wanting to do clubs or activism. They're like, yeah, I just took overtime hours like this month, and so I think it's more likely that as people, I don't know, I don't know, I don't think it's salvageable at this point. And I think it's just going to be like shattered. And it might be, maybe being a Republican in Texas means something different than being a Republican in Maine, right? Which has always been true, but like now in a huge way that might be true in like 5 years.
I mean, well, just the like, this is silly, but nothing in politics is constant. I mean, the Republican Party used to be the abolitionist party, right? Used to be the opposite of what it is today. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's like history does change things, and to assume that things will always be cemented, the problems or dynamics are always going to be as they are is sort of silly. It's although in Canada it feels like we'll only ever have minority governments from now until the end.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God.
I like a minority government.
I love a minority.
You can push them around real easy.
They cave to pressure.
Oh, they do.
Whereas like majority governments don't give shit what the people say. Like right now, our government is doing pretty good. And it's because they're just like on the back wall. Their backs against the wall. They're in minority government. They don't want to lose the next election, so they're like doing everything good. And you're like, sweet.
Just like, please let us be all things to all people. I want my pension.
Yeah. But they're like implementing dental care, pharma care. You're like, this is great. Why aren't you always doing this? Anyways, but that's Canada. We have minorities. Not more.
Well, we do have minorities.
That's Canada. We have minorities.
God, I had this like stupid internet interaction with an American, and like I don't have some giant judgment about Americans. I think everybody is different, but this is sort of an American thing. I made a joke about New York bagels versus Montreal bagels.
Montreal's are better.
They're so much better. Fuck a New York bagel. They're not even good.
Well, you're like guest of honor so far. And I remember someone was like, the French make very good bread, but I don't think they should be appropriating Jewish cuisine. And it's like, do you not think we have Jewish people here? Do you think do you think it's just all like Terrence and Philip?
Do you know that the Montreal bagel is a Jewish thing?
Yeah. Like you do realize like other places than the United States have immigrants and have multicultural societies. And it's crazy because this person is clearly from New York, and you're like, Jesus Christ.
Well, that was your first problem.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Also, I don't want to unhinge my jaw to have a bagel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like it's easy. I want that. Oh my God.
Scoring all the points with our audience.
I went somewhere. Someone on Washingtonian magazine was like, "Oh, this place has Montreal bagels." So I went there. Regular fucking bagels. I have no idea where this writer got.
Well, there were sesame seeds on it, so
sesame seeds are Montreal. Do you have any more stories to tell from there? If not, I have other questions.
Go for it. Ask questions.